the age-old question, the SAT or ACT, which one should I take? It's a question that's been plaguing high school students and parents for decades. Well, I'm Natalia, a professional tutor for over 15 years, and here's my advice on the subject. There are only two main differences between the SAT and ACT, and one other point of consideration. As far as their content, the SAT was revamped in 2016, and now it looks more like the ACT than ever. The writing and language or English or grammar sections, however they're labeled, are nearly identical. And the reading comprehension passages are very similar, and the math is quite similar. The main difference is that the ACT also has a science section. This is mostly like a science reasoning section. This can be a good section for someone who really likes science and does really well in it. It can be a point towards taking the ACT. The SAT does have some science reasoning questions on it, which are built into the reading comprehension section, but they're not nearly as difficult and they don't count for nearly as much. The biggest difference between the SAT and ACT is timing. So the SAT gives you more time per question, but the questions are harder. The ACT, there's more of a time crunch, but the questions are easier. So ask yourself, would you prefer easier questions or more time? Or if asking yourself these theoretical questions isn't quite thorough enough for you, then I highly recommend taking a diagnostic test in each the ACT and SAT as you begin your test prep adventure, we'll call it. It should be timed under test-like circumstances. This is the most valid way to know whether you're naturally inclined towards the ACT or the SAT. You can take this at home and proctor yourself, time yourself, or ask a family member to help with it, or you can look for a tutoring center that offers mock tests. You can then compare your tests using a concordance table, which I will link below, and only if there's a significant difference between your SAT and ACT scores, then that would be reason to go for one test over the other. And the other point of consideration I mentioned is you want to take a look at a calendar of when the SAT and ACT are offered throughout the year, because maybe some of those test dates you can't do. Maybe you have playoffs or a recital or family function that you can't miss. And you want to look not just for one test date, but for 3. I go into why I recommend 3 test dates and how to pick them in my video called When to Take the SAT, ACT. And you really want to watch that because that's the other puzzle piece in definitively picking the best test for you, ACT or SAT. If it's the case that there aren't 3 back-to-back test dates available to you in one test, then that may be reason enough to go with the other test. And finally, my last tip and piece of advice is do not switch tests. I know it can be very tempting when you've taken the real test once or twice and you haven't gotten the score you want. It can be tempting to switch to the other test thinking, oh, maybe I'll have better luck on that test. But the truth of the matter is, when you get used to the pacing of one test, switching to another one is like changing gears in a manual car. It can be very jumpy. And the truth of the matter is the tests are not that different, that switching to one is suddenly going to give you a big advantage. So don't switch tests. I have plenty of tips on how to get your highest scores on the SAT or ACT, whichever one you take. So check out my channel. And if you're interested in my full online courses, check out my website, nataliatutors.com. Thank you guys for listening.